All right, glad to have you back. You're still watching Newsday here on Arise News and still covering the NSAS protests across the length and breadth of the nation. We go back to our correspondent on ground in Lekki, Kachi Ofia. Kachi, back to you. What do you have for us?
Yeah, so we are still at the toll gate in Lekki, and right now I have Princess Damilola, a Nigerian comedian, and one thing that I really noticed throughout this protest for you was how passionate you were about reforming the police, the amount of money these people are paid, and how unfair it is. What does this mean to you?
I think it's just common sense. It is therefore essential that fiscal and monetary policy support are not prematurely withdrawn as best possible. In our latest World Economic Outlook, we continue to project a deep recession in 2020. And global growth is projected to be minus 4.4%, which is a small upgrade from June. This upgrade owes to somewhat less dire outcomes in the second quarter, as well as signs of a stronger recovery in the third quarter, offset partially by downgrades in some emerging and developing economies.
Unfortunately, the sound is not too great there. Once we do have better connection, we'll connect back with Kachi Ofia and catch up on what's going on at the protest. We can see they've now moved towards the Lekki toll axis. Mr. Feni, great to have you back on with us. Over to you.
Well, the protest is still on. All the persons spoken to have emphasized that the demands they have made, and I don't think they are too much of a demand, for the proper reform of the Nigerian police. The government can do better than just the pronouncement so far by summoning the political will, because we know that what we see of SARS is only a manifestation of the police, the police force we have. Because before SARS, there has been police brutality across the nation over time. Prominent Nigerians who have been killed by policemen. Somebody recalled Dele Udo, a Nigerian athlete who came from the US, primed for great things. Was just going out to buy suya in the night when he was cut down by police brutality. So for the NSAS clamor, I think we need to see some concrete steps being taken. The National Assembly, yes, the Police Act was recently passed, amended, as it were. Have they started implementing the new measures in that law?
Yeah, to address some of these
shortcomings.
The police
training and retraining. Yeah. It has been said over time that the environment where we train our policemen is enough to even
hellish.
Create the wrong mentality which they display when they go out there. So we need holistic reform of the police force and the system itself.
The lady she was interviewing, the comedian, was talking about what you get to pay the police. All right, let's get back to Kachi for that interview. Kachi, I'm sure you're ready for us now. Yeah, you were conducting an interview. I can't quite remember her name, but I know she's a comedian.
Like I said earlier, yes, thank you indeed. We're still at the Lekki toll gate, and I've got Princess Damilola here with me, and you were just emphasizing how we need to reform the police.
Yes. We need to reform the police force. You cannot give guns to somebody who is somebody who feels threatened by other people's wealth, somebody who feels helpless. He will leave his home 5 a.m. Sometimes he will be in the office for 3 days, and at the end of the month he gets maybe 50 or 60,000 naira. He has a wife, he has kids. How is he going to take care of them? Then you give him a gun. The gun gives him that thing that makes him feel invisible. That thing gives him power. He looks at a young person, he sees his rival. He looks at a rich man or a rich woman, he sees a threat. He looks at somebody he feels should be maybe his younger brother's age, riding a big car, immediately empty sexy, he gets angry. Without provocation, he shoots. The government is there allotting money for these people. I also said that the places that you are putting this money, we need the money in other better places for
apart from reforming the police, what else do you think people are clamoring for? Because they have dissolved SARS. But from the
my sister, oh, they deserve that. Is that stopping anything? How many people were killed yesterday? Let me tell you one thing. One day, a hungry man is an angry man. Somebody is hungry. You get him a gun. You are telling him that you want to talk. He won't listen to you. You have to reform. Remove the bad egg. I can tell you that in all of my life, and I'm still very young, I have only met one polite policeman. He stopped me in Sunday and said, Sister Johnson, I said, good afternoon. I said, good afternoon. He said, how was your day been so far? I said, fine. He said, I hope you don't mind. I want to stop you for a minute. I said, what? He said, I'm here to do stop and start. I willingly came down. I have never seen a policeman like, I asked, where is your police officer? He said, there, but it's someone. Then the other unit was the DPO. I drove down there to say, do you know so? They say yes. I said, I've never seen a policeman in my life treat you except abroad. That means we can have good policemen here.
Yes, indeed.
But the government is not making it possible. Hey, don't get wrong. All the money that you are siphoning, money that you cannot even finish spending in your lifetime, can't you just let these people be okay? Remove the bad egg. You will see people that are ready to work. Pay them now. I think you know what I'm saying. If you increase somebody's salary from 50 to 100K, my brother, let me tell you, there will be change. If you call them for seminar, they will sit down. I've gone to police stations, several police stations, to talk to them, to educate them about systems, about how to deal with the public and everything. I have seen educated policemen. But when you are hungry, education flies out of the window. When you are helpless, education flies out of the window. You'll be ready to do anything. And now you are putting those people on the road. You are telling them to face you. This is somebody who has been to some people have 3 degrees here. No job here.
Princess.
No job. Most people that are working here learn how to do what they are doing on YouTube.
Now we have a 5 for 5, things that people want the IGP to do, things that people want the government to do, which includes releasing the protesters, justice for people that have died, psychological evaluation for the disbanded members of the SARS unit, amongst other things. What happens if this 5 for 5 is not achieved?
Let me tell you the truth. Number one, Terry, disbanding here, you just disband. We're in this Nigeria now. You are fooling us, Abi. Sakani Bobo here. You disband someone. So go where? Shebi to go. And then we form a group now. Some of the people will take police uniform. You are doing psychological evaluation for somebody that is hungry. What are you talking about? If you want to evaluate somebody, go and check how much. Go to the rank and file of the police. They are suffering. Ask them, how much are you earning? 40,000. What's your degree? Okay. Somebody that is working in another company that is not a police force, how much are they earning? Maybe 1%. Okay. Let's increase it. So even if it's from 40 to 70, you will see changes. When you call for a seminar, so now say you want to evaluate it work. You cannot evaluate somebody that is hungry. Most of the truth is when somebody is hungry, you are saying you are doing evaluation. Can you mean where? Then all the people that were killed, all these people that were killed, most of them were not even part of the protesters. This is the problem with this country. You will not be in your room. We have to come and meet you. And there's no justice. Nigeria is the only country in the world where you can do absolutely anything, record it, and get away with it. 7 boys raped a girl some years ago. We stood out and said there must be food. They recorded, they filmed themselves raping this girl, and our statement was, instead of even recording it, people kill me. Nothing was done to them. This country, and you are talking about, look, if there is not taking, you see what happens when people are fed up. When you take a cow or a goat to the wall, they run again. You think that you are protected by your high fences, by your 100 million battalion that you put at your gate? Let me tell you, the day of reckoning is coming. When death will snatch you, you are about alone now. People don't even have agenda more than some people in Africa. What is Jelle?
This is what's going on right now at the Lekki toll gate. We have seen so many people. Yes, a lot of people are tired. A lot of people are just standing right now. Cars are unable to actually move past the toll gate. Let me show you what it looks like. You see, they're just cars parked. A lot of people have volunteered water. A lot of people have volunteered food. And it is what's going on here right now. Protesters very, very frustrated, chanting EndSARS, reform the police, and Nigeria can do better. Back to you in the studio.
Many thanks, Kachi, for the update. It looks as though things have progressed from what we were seeing earlier on in the day today. Let's head over to Abuja. Our correspondent Ferdinand Duraha has updates for us on the End SARS protests happening there. Ferdinand, great to have you back with us. What's the latest? Unfortunately, we've lost connection there with Ferdinand. Once we do have him, we'll go straight to the Abuja End SARS protest. Mr. Afeni, let's bring it back here into the studio. This is literally what you predicted, that at the end of the day, we are still going to see traffic mounting up, and the initial aim of the protest, it's going to portray itself.
Yes, because there's no way you hold a protest in Lagos and traffic will not be disrupted, no matter how you even try to control traffic and control the protesters, because Lagos is such a congested city that any little disruption of traffic will lead to traffic buildup, and that's what we are seeing. But I'm sure a lot of motorists are also, they have sympathy for the protest, because there are many people who are not there who have been victims of police brutality of this FSARS over time. But we must also mention that they too have done some good job. Recall the policemen that went to Taraba State to apprehend that kidnapped kingpin. They were men of this anti-robbery squad.
Ghana.
Yes, who were brutally murdered by soldiers. And those soldiers have also not been brought to book today. The murdered policemen who were on their unlawful duty. Such should not be happening, that people will get away with murder, blue murder, extortion. When these things are reported, when you don't see anybody being brought to book, then of course those bad eggs within the police will continue to do what they've been doing. Some will argue that in fact, instead of a few bad eggs, you say there are a few good eggs within the police. Which means we have a lot to do in terms of overhauling the system, because part of the problem is systemic.
I was listening to Princess, and no matter how Kachi tried to drive her, she was so passionate about the working conditions, living environment, pay of the policeman. That was what she concentrated on. And that's what we have harped on over time. And then she talked about, rogue police people. You have the good ones. She even talked about police. I have had encounters with police people. Very cordial. I've never really had an encounter for me with, but the point must be made about, and the excuses are not being made, but the fact of their working conditions, of their environmental hazards. That was what Princess was alluding to there, all through her talk, actually, with so much passion about the fact that if you take somebody's money from 40 to 70, you're going to see a change. And a hungry man is an angry man. And you can't begin to talk about psychological evaluation without having their psyche tweaked, retuned.
Addressing issues that must have given rise to their way of thinking and way of behavior. Mm-hmm. If you don't address those issues and you just want to evaluate, then you evaluate and the condition will remain. If policemen are being dehumanized by the system, then you expect humanity from them when they carry out their duty. It's not going to work. It doesn't add up. Mm-hmm. The environment in which they train, quite dehumanizing. Even there to get basics, they have to pay from their pockets.
Even bribe.
I didn't want to use that word. Bribe their superiors. Professor Dinkalu was on our program yesterday, the morning show, and he has done some work for the Police Service Commission. And he was saying that there's a systemic extortion process. The DPO, the policeman on the road need to settle the DPO. The DPO need to settle the commissioner. The commissioner need to settle the IGP. Settle them from where? From where are they getting those funds? From the people on the road? So in a way, within the system, extortion is legitimized without being legal. And if you have that in the system, that boys on the road will settle their officer and the DPO will settle somebody. And so then it means there's a systemic problem that has to be addressed.
Absolutely.
And until we do that, we'll continue to see.
We have to take it all the way to the grassroots, because this is something we've said it time and time again. The welfare of all of our security officers, at the end of the day, these are people that are supposed to be protecting us. These are people that are supposed to be serving. And I think it was Rufai who made that point on the morning show today when he said we need to even look at the name, Nigeria Police Force. Shall we change it to Nigeria Police Service? Because at the end of the day, narration, lingo, it's everything. You know what I mean? And if we do not look at the welfare of our police officers...
by any other name will smell as sweet.
Conversely, at that time, would disagree with you. We had former DSS officer here.
Yeah.
That was one of the questions I put to him. I mean, you talk about what has a name got to do with it, and he said everything. A name has got to do everything with it. That they have to do everything, ranging from remuneration, all the things that we're talking about, to even probably changing the name. That was what he was saying, and
changing the structure may be more far-reaching.
Changing the structure, there's just complete overhaul.
Even controlling the police from the center is a problem.
A huge problem.
Policing is local, but you have a situation where you control the police from the federal capital. You send policemen from
Sokoto. Very unwieldy.
Yeah, from Sokoto to
all right.
Yenegua.
We need to go to Abuja now, where we have a correspondent, Ferdinand Duroha. Ferdinand Duroha, glad to have you join us, bring us up to speed.
Let's go. All right, thank you so much, guys. Now, we told you about the walk. It's a very long walk from Banex Junction and down to the National Assembly. Now, if you can clearly see me, guys, now this is the Three Arms Zone, and we're talking about the House of Assembly, well, just in front of us. Now, the Secretariat is just behind us, and up in front is where you have the police force quarters, where right now, well, a good look will show you that there are some security personnel down there. And so don't forget, the lineup of this protest march. Well, it was about moving straight to the National Assembly to take their grievance to the parliamentarians. And that's exactly where we are right now. Well, it's just about a kilometer walk, and then we will get to the doors of the National Assembly.
And what would you say the mood is like at the moment, Ferdinand, on ground with regards to how things have progressed over the past few hours? When we spoke to you about an hour ago, things still seemed quite calm, things still look quite calm as we speak. Are you positive that the rest of today's protests are going to run smoothly?
Well, I must say it's been supercharged. Well, along the line, we were joined by some other persons. Well, it's all about it. And well, if right now we see some military convoy. Now, we told you earlier that in front it was where you have, the police headquarters, and that's exactly where it is. Now, my cameras will zoom straight and so that you can see the military men. Well, right now, thus far, there have been no guns fired, and.
Well, I hope we've not lost a connection.
Some military men right
hearing,
now,
but he's
and
back.
Coming out, and you definitely must see the picture. Now, this is exactly the kind of picture that we saw a couple of days ago when the Arise News cameras were indeed harassed, and this is exactly what the people are doing now. The people are on their knees. They are showing that yes, they are not aggressive, but they are showing that yes, the only thing that they have is water bottles on them, and I think at this point, well, we're expecting to see the military men react. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly the situation that happened a couple of days ago, and we didn't see any of the security personnel or riot gears. We didn't see any of them, with anything other than just guns. And I want to say the approach that we've seen in this protest marches thus far, and we'll wait and see exactly the reaction. But it hasn't been funny, but we've seen people being brutalized.
Oh.
Well, just in front, the banners on the in front are carrying pictures of people who have died in the course of this struggle. So we're waiting to see the reaction, guys.
Yeah, Ferdinand, quite interesting. Before we even began to talk about the soldiers, I saw people running, and I was going to...
End police brutality! 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 End police brutality. Good. What do we want? End police brutality. 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 We only solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. We shall always stand forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever.
Okay.
All right, Ferdinand, yes, I was actually going to ask you a while ago why people started running, and I noticed the soldiers, of course, they were approaching the seat of power, so you expect. Now, but this is the interesting thing. Ordinarily, you won't get soldiers. It should be the police people there. And then I saw a soldier quietly hand over a banner back to the protesters. So it's looking like a cordial relationship and, of course, the attitude of those protesting. I can see the police people discussing with some of the protesters. Ferdinand, yes, you're on ground. Okay, tell us more. I hope Ferdinand can hear me.
We have every right to peaceful protest.
Yes, I can hear you.
Peaceful protest.
Okay. Okay, so the cameras are trying to get some very interesting pictures for you. But from what we have gathered, well, the military guys have refused to allow the protesters move any further. The military guys have refused to allow the protesters move any further. And let's not forget again, well, the destination is the National Assembly. And they are just at the junction, at the entrance leading to the National Assembly. And thus far, well, the military guys have refused to allow the protesters move any further. Now, perhaps you want to raise questions about why the protesters had not been allowed to go see their representatives. You want to raise questions about why the protesters are not being allowed to go see people who indeed, would carry their voice, to the executives. So we'll just wait and see exactly what the reactions would look like.
Is that, it looked like that soldier went for the camera. Actually, that soldier was actually getting passionate, very passionate there about something. And the lady was trying to say, calm down, was telling the point. Then suddenly he just veered off to his right and went for the camera. And it's the way he's looking, it looks like the camera is...
Start kneeling down, and I can tell you that this is the second Arise News camera that has been snatched in the last 48 hours. This is the second Arise News camera that has been snatched in the last 48 hours. You can also see that the cameraman, Jonah, was also brutalized. He was hit with a gun on his head. I'm trying to locate him right now. Some people just took him away. But that's the situation. Well, they are moving vehicles very fast. People are standing in front of them, but they are not backing out. They are cocking their guns. Let's not forget that this is just meters away from the National Assembly. This is just meters away from the National Assembly. The Arise News cameras have been confiscated. Some of the protesters are being beaten, are being thrown into the truck. They are throwing protesters into the truck. They are arresting protesters as we speak. They are arresting protesters as we speak. Some people have been beaten. The cameras of Arise News have been confiscated. the second in the last 48 hours. The two cameramen, one of them with a TVU, the other with the camera, was also brutalized. He was hit by a gun. And then also another soldier hit him with another object. I think it looks like a stick or a baton. These are military men. There are no policemen here on ground. They are plucking branches. And that's exactly what they want to do. They want to hit people with a stick. So you just see the situation of what is happening right now in Abuja. They've gotten sticks, and all they want to do is hit protesters. The protesters are sitting on the road. They've got guns in front of the National Assembly that is supposed to be the place where the voice of the people are rested in a very peaceful protest. They've arrested some people already. And if you can hear, the people have resorted to singing the national anthem. And I'm just going to go front and I'm going to ask him, okay, you are holding an Arise News camera. Okay, you are holding an Arise News camera. Okay, you are holding an Arise News camera. We are live. We are live. People are lying on the ground. And you are beating people who are lying on the ground. People are lying on the ground and they are hitting them with sticks.
Lying on the ground and are beating the people. You can hear him saying that they've confiscated the camera of our cameraman there now.
You have confiscated our camera, the Arise News camera. They cut the line. They cut the line. Yes. They cut the line. No, the line is too on. The line is too on. Hello?
Wow,
All right, that was the voice of our correspondent there in Abuja in front of the National Assembly, Ferdinand Roha. Our cameraman has been assaulted. This second time now this is happening. The camera has been seized. And Efeni, that is like Leila said. That
The second Arise News camera, and then also they collected the micro mic that I have on me while I was asking the man to release our cameras. Some of our personnel, some of our staff have been beaten, while some of them have been wounded. In the last 48 hours, two Arise News digital HD cameras have been collected just because we want to give Nigerians a voice. That is the true picture of Kogi in Abuja. Thank you very much. I will send you your number. Thank you. I'll send you your number.
We've lost connection there with Ferdinand Roha, but he gave us quite a long insight after the camera was, of course, clearly battered to the ground or whatever the case may be. And this is extremely worrying because, like you said, indeed, this is the second time that we are having an Arise camera crew being assaulted by security agencies. This is absolutely unacceptable. And like I said, I do not understand what escalated this. Mr. Efeni.
Well, from what you can see there, when the protesters got to that junction, when you see soldiers in battle fatigue, armed and ready, it means they are there to cause the kind of problem we have just seen. And the destruction of that camera was deliberate, because after that camera was snatched away and perhaps destroyed because we couldn't see anything anymore, they started attacking and beating the people, as we heard from the report. That is the scene they wanted to prevent from being covered, where they were beating Nigerians who were protesting peacefully, being beaten by soldiers who are in battle fatigue.
It makes me sick to my
armed
stomach.
to the teeth with their guns. So I think this is unacceptable. They were only heading to the National Assembly to present their requests to the representative of the people. And now people are being brutalized.
One would expect that information should get to the NAS, the authorities of the NAS, so they can come out and either quell what is happening or address the protesters. As yet, that hasn't happened. But then again, this is not just what you see in a democracy. Again, it brings to focus the psyche, the training, because you hardly anyway see army on the streets of most democracies in the world. What you see is the police, because army...
When you have peaceful protests.
When you have, particularly. They're not trained to do civil duties.
If you have terrorist threats, you can bring soldiers.
You can bring
but
soldiers.
This is peaceful protest.
Yeah.
Peaceful protest.
So army shouldn't, in the first instance, be there. That's not their forte. This is the forte of... I think we'll have Ferdinand again. Ferdinand's back on. All right, Ferdinand, now paint for us a picture of everything that transpired. Everything looked quiet until something just ticked. One of the army personnel just began to shout and scream, and then the camera issue. Just bring us up to speed. Give us a picture of what happened.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me? Did you hear me, Ferdinand?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Good. Now tell us what really provoked this situation.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
These guys have shown that they've been very clueless. They've not been able to, have an organized manner of handling the protest in the last 4 days. Now, in the last 3 days, we've seen, formations of, police personnel. But I can tell you right now that it is military guys who have been brought in today. And the Arise News camera was recording beside in the protest. And so it was a direct target on Arise News.
Why?
It was a direct target on Arise. What they wanted to do was to stop the cameras from recording because they saw that.
So, Ferdinand, where is the cameraman now? I hope the cameraman is safe. First of all, can we confirm that? And a direct attack on Arise News simply because they knew this was airing out or because they wanted to attack Arise News?
He's safe. I can confirm to you that he's safe. I think a little bruised, but he's trying to send some videos via WhatsApp. Now, we also notice, like it's a tradition sometimes, that within the 3 arms zone, well, the network is often jammed. And that's exactly what, lots of people are suggesting, that, perhaps the network is jammed, because there are some other people who are trying to go live via different social media networks that are also having challenges.
All right, Ferdinand. Before this incident, we saw a lady get in your midst and began to tell the protesters to kneel down, and one particular soldier began screaming, he was animated and suddenly went towards the direction of the camera. Who is the lady? What caused her to begin to ask the protesters to kneel down or something like that?
You have to repeat. I can hear you.
All right. Before the incident occurred, we saw a lady wearing something like a hijab and a gown, flowing gown, asking the protesters to calm down. Then we saw one soldier began to get animated and suddenly turned towards the cameraman. Who is the lady? What was she doing? What? Just tell us the events that occurred then.
Well, I know a couple of people are putting on hijab around here, and possibly I can't confirm who exactly the person is, but we have hundreds of women, here, and everybody, just like the guys, but they have comported themselves appropriately, very decently. Well, nobody has attacked any security personnel. Nobody attacked them. We don't know what provoked them, but particularly, as I said earlier, I think it was a direct attack on the station because the cameramen were recording separately. Yes. They were recording separately. And because they saw it, that the pictures were live on TV, I can also confirm that Arise News is the only television station
apparently,
that has
from what we
followed
can see,
this protest religiously. And we are the only television station that is on ground.
Yeah.
And possibly that is the reason for this attack. Let me confirm again that in the last 48 hours, well, 2 Arise News cameras have been confiscated, and I want to presume damaged, because just about now, well, when they tried to grab the camera from the camera person, there was a small tussle, the camera hit the ground, but of course, we know exactly that, in fact, it's a direct attack on the station. It's a direct attack on the media.
It doesn't surprise me, Ferdinand, because like you said, Arise has been covering these protests profusely, and that may not necessarily ring nicely in the ears of some people, but we can hear a lot of noise in the background now. I can hear a lot of women who seem like they're screaming or shouting, and before we went off the phone to you before, I also heard a woman saying they're going to kill us. What is going on as we speak? Ferdinand, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So what's going on as we speak? There's a lot of shouting in the background.
Well, the protesters are still there. The military guys are trying to create formation. There are about 4 military trucks now. I can see about 4 military trucks now, and perhaps some kind of reinforcement. But as we speak, I can confirm that the Arise News crew, the 3 of us are still on ground, and then 2 of them were assaulted earlier. I was able to get away because I was in the crowd while the camera guys were out of the crowd towards a reach trying to record before the military guys went for them and, of course, went for the cameras.
All right, Ferdinand, a while ago, while we're listening to you when we're off camera, we couldn't get any pictures. We had people screaming, shouting, and you were saying stuff like they're beating us there. So what about the protesters? I was supposing they were probably lying down then. What were they beating them with, if they were beating them? And just tell us the scenery, what it's like with the protesters around where you are.
Okay, well, just beside the road, there is a reserve area, and you have lots of trees there. So what some of the military men did was to run into the reserve area and then got branches of trees. Now, those branches of trees were used to attack protesters the second time. Now, the first time, they actually used guns on the Arise News crew, on 2 of them. One of them was kicked to the ground. Another was stepped on brutally. And then an officer used the gun on one of them. He used the gun to hit the camera person specifically. But since then, because they've seen that the crowd have been resilient, the crowd have comported themselves so well, they went into the bush, they got some branches, and they have been trying to scare people and to threaten people with that. Now, it's unfortunate. I know just a couple of minutes ago, we saw Aisha Yusufu around, and she's also been in the midst of the struggle, trying to indeed talk to the security men, and of course ensure that the protests have been peaceful. Now, peaceful protests, a couple of minutes ago, they attacked the protesters and attacked the Arise News cameras.
Thanks,
so
Ferdinand.
I think it was a deliberate attempt to attack the Arise News and then the cameras which they have done.
Well, what we have on the screen right now is earlier footage before the camera was obviously attacked. This is the earlier footage that we have just to show everyone that's tuned into Arise News right now. As you can see, the protesters are there peacefully exercising their human rights. We didn't necessarily here in the studio expect that anything was going to go wrong. Everything seemed to be going well.
That's the woman I was talking about.
Yeah,
and that's the soldier that got animated.
That's Aisha Yesufu.
That's it. That's the soldier that got animated.
Yes, so what you saw there is the soldier saw the camera pointing towards him when Aisha Yesufu went and approached him, and that soldier then ran towards the camera. Either way, this is just absolutely unacceptable. We were hoping that we would see a smooth day of protests in Abuja following everything that's gone on so far. We've had police dispersing water at people when at the end of the day we don't even have enough clean water for people. Anyway, I don't even want to get into it. This is earlier footage from what happened. So as you can see, I don't necessarily think that anyone can say protesters were doing anything wrong.
The protesters were peaceful.
Actually, they even went on.
Yes.
You would watch, if you're watching this, like we said earlier footage, that's the soldier, he gets animated. You can see at that point, a lady just walks in, asks the protesters to calm down. Then the soldier turns immediately and goes straight for the cameraman. That's earlier footage of the assault of the Arise crew, particularly the cameraman. I was going to ask Ferdinand whether he's in touch with the cameraman, what's his state like now, whether he's, because I know he was safe.
He said it's okay.
Yeah, he said he's safe.
All right. Okay, Ferdinand, okay, I gather you're still on the phone. So I know you said the cameraman is safe. Have you got together with him? What's the state of mind and all that?
I think he's traumatized because, he's still seated. He's still seated close to the ground. I think he's traumatized.
Okay.
And just like we saw earlier, or just like we reported earlier, when he was assaulted, he was kicked severally. I can confirm I saw him being kicked about 4 times, by different people who went for the camera. And just when he was trying to secure the camera, he was kicked. And I think he has suffered some bruises. That I cannot confirm right now because I'm away from him. He's still with the crowd. He's still with some crowd who have gathered him. But I'm trying to move away so that I can at least have a better connection. But he's fine. I think I should say that.
One is hoping, Ferdinand, that by now information would have got to the authorities in the National Assembly and that maybe one of the authorities would have worked out to address the crowd and to talk to the soldiers. But as yet, can you tell us whether anything of the sort is happening or about to happen?
Well, none of them are on ground. None of the parliamentarians who are just a couple of meters away from here are on ground to speak to the people. None of them are on ground. We just have the military guys, and then also we just have the protesters. Nobody trying to mediate. There's nobody trying to talk to and to listen.
Where are you reporting from? We believe you're safe, but what particularly are you reporting from, Ferdinand?
We've got a nice pause there, haven't we, on the face of the soldier that decided it was a great idea to, knock down our Arise camera. That's him right there wearing the red and black face mask, charging towards the camera.
Well, that's a policeman there as well. I'm just seeing the policeman. You can see a policeman by his
to the left, all right, yeah. Ferdinand, back over to you.
Well, definitely, you can see those pictures. You can see those pictures that are showing, the military people. And just like I pointed out, it was a deliberate attack on the media. It was a deliberate attack because after the first attack, it was another attack.
Yeah, Ferdinand, I was asking.
Another attack at me, and trying to reach for the microphone. It was another attack at me, trying to reach for the microphone. Now they are also forming formations, trying to circle the crowd. The crowd still protesting, and have refused to back down because of the intimidation by the military. And I'm repeating again, there are no police formations, but I think just a policeman or two. But then precisely, it is military men who are involved in this assault today. It's only military men, about 4 military trucks, who are involved in this assault today.
So, Ferdinand, I mean, what's going to happen now? Are the protesters going to move? How do you see this playing out over the next few minutes?
The protesters, once again, I must add, they are not backing down. They are not backing down. They are not backing down. They've insisted on their right to protest, and all that has happened thus far is that they have formed formations around them, and just like I said, these are not riot policemen. They do not have, any riot gears. There are no, just like I said, there are no water cannons, just like a before.
It's disappointing. It's so that everything, until he came, everything seemed to be working out fine. Until that particular soldier came, one wondered.
Okay, great, Ferdinand.
Okay.
Perhaps just a couple of minutes, 1 or 2.
All right. Yeah. So one wondered.
And then get to hear from her.
Great. Thanks, Ferdinand.
Ferdinand, while you're at it, one wondered really why he just came to upend everything. Everything was working smoothly, like we said initially. You saw a soldier handing over a banner back to the protesters, and they took it, and everything was, nice until that particular soldier came. We'll talk about rogue security agents, and suddenly, out of nowhere, he gets animated, and then the lady is calming people down, and he turns to the cameraman. What did you need to do that for, really?
Well, what we are saying is quite...
Okay,
all right,
so I understand that we can cross back over to Abuja. Ferdinand Duraha, our correspondent, does have Aisha Yesufu with him now. Ferdinand, over to you.
All right, we're trying to get a correspondent there, Ferdinand, who has Aisha there, wants to get a word or two from her as to what transpired, where in Abuja security operatives in the front of just stone throw to the National Assembly assaulted a RISE crew, confiscated their camera, and they beat up protesters. That's a RISE. This is an earlier footage from what transpired before the camera was confiscated, hit to the ground, by the way, and then their particular cameraman assaulted. From the reports we're getting, he's safe, but kind of
kicked several times.
Yeah, kicked several times while he was probably on the ground.
They have a RISE News camera. They just collected the camera from there. They have a RISE News camera. I know the guy the soldier. Yes, we Yes. They have the camera. Yes. They are not going anywhere. Madam, please, we are live. I wanted to talk to you. RISE News, we are live. They took the camera here. No, yeah. This is my cameraman who was harassed. This was the guy that kicked me. He kicked us here and then he collected the cameras. The camera is with them. Their Rise News camera. They have their Rise News camera. They have their Rise News camera. This is the second Rise News camera they are confiscating in the last 48 hours. This is the second Rise News camera they are confiscating in the last 48 hours. We need our camera. No. They still have their Rise News camera. The second camera they are confiscating in the last 48 hours.
The same Nigeria army that we are crying because of. We are crying for them. We are crying for them. Then to bring back the camera, bring back the camera. Can you imagine the camera being
Well, we were recording, we were going live, and they confiscated the camera. A cameraman was assaulted. The cameras were not even with the protesters. The camera was just to the side. And then two of our camera people assaulted the second time in the last 48 hours. The second time in the last 48 hours. On Sunday, I was brutalized, and a Rise News camera person was wounded. He's still in the hospital. The station have spent over 420,000 naira taking care of that cameraman who was brutalized. And right now they've collected the second one, assaulting two other cameramen, in the process. And all we are asking is, give us back our camera. The camera serves the public. The camera does not serve the military people. The camera serves the public. That is exactly why we are here. There are some other stations that have decided and have put a ban on people taking the NSAS campaign, but the Rise News have not done that. We've been on the street with people. On Sunday, I and my cameraman were brutalized. He's still in hospital. We've spent over 470,000 naira taking care of him. The cameras are very expensive cameras, very, very expensive cameras. But that is just the situation. Right now we have our mic. Well, I'm even scared to hold the mic right now because it looks like a gun to them. Yeah. And all they just want to do is attack anybody who is with a mic. So we can't stop recording, we can't stop going live until they give us back our cameras. We do not work for the army. Rise News does not work for the police, and that is exactly the reason why we have been in this. We've been covering the people, and for two cameras in the space of 48 hours is unexplainable. Twice today we were attacked. The first time it was the camera guys. The second time it was for me. They reached out. They took away the mic. Look at the mic. Look at the head of the mic. They messed this up. Right now, yes, today, this is the second time this is happening. It happened twice here. But all we're doing right now is using phone conversations. And if you guys can notice, well, it's been very difficult to send block videos. And that's because
all right. While you're watching that footage earlier from a Rise correspondent and his cameraman who was assaulted, we're bringing Honor Ekomo, security expert, to share more perspective on the NSAS protest. All right, if we have Honor Ekomo there. All right, fine. Honor, what do you make of, I'm sure you're watching, or at least you're aware of what is happening right now in Abuja, where the army have assaulted the correspondent of Arise News, beat up the cameraman, snatched the camera from him. This is the second time it's happening within 48 hours. What do you make of this incident?
Can you hear me, sir?
We can hear you clearly. Go ahead.
Oh, great. Well, I think the protest is beginning to mutate, not only on the part of the protesters, but also on the part of the authorities. I think tempers are fraying. People are getting a little bit edgy. And this is really what happens usually when there's an incident of this nature going on. People start getting on each other's nerves. For example, I heard one of your reporters saying that they don't like to see what's it called? They don't like to see the microphone pointed at them because it looks like a weapon. It looks like a gun.
You know what I think we could do? Let me just record you saying what you want to say. Yeah, so I could just see.
Go on.
It looks like a gun.
Go on.
And and these guys are trained when you point an object at them that looks like a weapon, they are trained to react instinctively. It's just part of the normal security training they get. So I think tempers are getting frayed right now. And but it's good what you are doing, your efforts at keeping everyone informed about what is going on. I believe those in power are also seeing this, and these street level officers will get instructions that they ought to be more civil in their reaction to to these to the protesters, and also particularly to the media, because everyone knows that being media friendly is good policy. And so I don't believe that anyone really wants to go out of their way to antagonize the media unnecessarily. So I think that is what we are seeing now. The protesters are getting a little bit more edgy, and the security forces are getting a little bit more edgy too. And if this continues this way, we are going to see perhaps even a greater escalation to other levels of violence, which might even result in loss of lives.
It's very unfortunate what we're seeing playing out because at the end of the day, seeing attacks on the media, it's quite disheartening, especially in a democracy. The fact that we don't have the rights to a peaceful protest, which leads me to ask you about this whole situation as a whole. The IGP of police coming out to state that he, of course, had disbanded SARS, but protesters are saying that we still have demands that we want to be met. And if you take a look at these demands, they don't necessarily look like things that are asking too much of anybody. For example, protesters are asking for an increase in welfare for police officers, which is something that is very important. Protesters are also asking for the immediate release of all protesters that have been locked up during this period. Are protesters asking for too much here?
Well, I think those two items that you have referenced, I don't believe that they are too much. I think they're just reasonable. And perhaps the police stands to gain the most, because if the government does accede to the demand for increased pay for them, then perhaps we'll have less of this violence, which people believe is brought by the fact that police personnel feel that they are not well compensated, and that they have to, extort money. Some of them, at least those ones with low integrity, they feel that they have to extort money from members of the public in order to make ends meet. And, their conditions of service are, they are quite deplorable. Their environment, the way they live is, nothing to write home about. And so there are many things having to do with police welfare. I was talking to another media house a few moments ago, and we were talking about the police budget of 400 and something billion. And I said that's a drop in the bucket. The policing personnel we have in this country is hugely inadequate. We need to have at least 1 million-man police agency. Here we are with less than 300,000, most of whom are doing bodyguard duty or close protection, not even close protection. They are doing orderly duty, carrying bags and going to buy chicken from the farm and all that. So I think there are lots of difficulties here. But in terms of the demands by the protesters, I don't think there's anything wrong with what they have asked for in terms of those two that you've referenced, release of people who have been arrested, and then, remuneration for the police agency. Now, those persons who have been arrested, they should be documented, And if for any reason that there is evidence that they acted out of malice or they destroyed property or injured police personnel, then they should be charged to court just like anybody else.
All right, Ona, let me ask you this. What, in your own evaluation, is the way to go in reforming our police? You know why I ask this? It doesn't seem to just be the SARS thing. It seems to be something that apparently goes beyond that.
You are very correct, sir. I think it's a kind of pent-up frustration. That's what we call it. A lot has been bottled up for so long. Even look at just the SARS thing, for example. People have been complaining. They've been doing End SARS campaign for maybe 3-4 years now. And every time they come up with it, the authorities say, okay, they change the name or they do some kind of cosmetic reform and say, okay, that is it. And then, of course, it's back to business as usual. So I think the young people are really frustrated now. And they are like, you know what, this got to end. And we got to have better policing. But beyond SARS, SARS is like a focal point at this point. I think they really seek reforming of the entire policing service that we get as Nigerians, which is really nothing to write home about. We are the third most terrorized country in the world, which shows that the police is not performing. The task of crime control within the Nigerian territory is beyond them, as it were. And yet we lend our people to other countries for PKOs, peacekeeping operations. And so that's neither here nor there. So the point being that we need adequate policing in this country. We need crime control, and we need to deal with the deviant element. And certainly, of course, there are other things. The young people are also protesting, in my view, just my personal view, I think they are protesting against the government too, because look at the youth bulge, the high unemployment, the high number out of school children, that people have to cross Sahara Desert on foot to try to get to Europe by all means. Europe is a poor continent, and we are trying desperate to get there. Meanwhile, the wealth is here in Nigeria, even though on tap, just a potential. We have potential wealth here in Nigeria. But if we had good entrepreneurial leadership, that will become, Nigeria will be an El Dorado, as it were. So I think these young people are seeing this, and they are frustrated, they are tired of it. And so let me tell you, even if you say you're going to pay the police more, it's not going to stop at that. But I think the government has options in terms of what it needs to do or what it should do to bring this to an end.
So what options?
Sorry, if I may come in here and ask my question. Thank you. Because protesters have been killed, as we have seen over the past few days, stray bullets, etc. And it's a very horrible situation to see playing out, because young Nigerians are trying to go out and just demand for something very, very simple. And I think it's a time of awakening that we're seeing as well. Young people becoming more conscious, knowing what their rights are and saying, we're going to stand up for our rights. So to reflect off what you said, what are those things the government needs to be focusing on? Because our security agencies are clearly not responding in the right way, sir, and there should be a way for them to respond to this, and they're not getting it right.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we have, first of all, let us start with our political leadership. I think this is something, even though there seems to be a north-south divide here in these NSAS protests, but I think by and large, SARS is a problem for the whole of Nigerians. Perhaps they send the good SARS up north and send the bad ones down south. But SARS is a problem for all Nigerians. Let me just assure you. I don't have any problem with SARS. I think they are a necessary element of policing. In fact, I put out a release yesterday, which was published both yesterday and today in many media organizations, saying that with SARS, with this disbandment of SARS, we're going to have an upsurge in violent crimes in the short term. So, I mean, I am worried about that because, violent crimes, it doesn't do anybody any good. So, but having said that, I think the political leadership needs to speak up at this point. The IG has spoken up. I think there was some statement recently from Mr. President. But this, to me right now, is even much more explosive than even the COVID matter. And I think the president ought to speak to us again. And then there ought to be proper messaging. This is where I need Frank Mba. Mba is a good orator. He's a good spokesman for the police agency. He needs to come out up front now and talk to people and let them know what kind of reforms. And then most importantly, I think one of the things that people are looking for here is oversight of the police agency. Because we've seen time and time again, the police says we are going to reform. Good. But then there's no oversight on that reform. And we have seen that the police is capable or is incapable of policing itself, that is reforming itself. So we need an oversight. That is something that has to do with civilians, perhaps even with the media and so on and so forth, so that we have people who are overlooking and seeing and looking into issues of police brutality, rights abuses, extrajudicial killing, and so on and so forth. Because this was what was envisaged for the PSC, Police Service Commission. But that one is schedule of duties have changed and is no longer doing oversight. It's only now focused on promotion and recruitment. So I think what needs to happen now is for someone who has some information, who is sized with good information, and if they don't know what to say, they should call me. I'll tell them, they have my numbers. I'll tell them what to say. Go out there and convince people that, in fact, we are taking police reform seriously, and they must take it seriously also. And then ensure that people buy into their message that policing is for the good of all. Listen, let me tell you, back to 1829, Pillian police reforms, Metropolitan Force of London. Now, police is the members of the public who are paid to protect the rest of us. That is why you have Cap 12 LFN, Cap 12 CPA, which says that every citizen of Nigeria is in fact a policeman. You can cause arrest if a crime is committed in your full view. So, but the police agency, that's why they have the Police Act, gives them powers to arrest under reasonable suspicion. Citizens like me and you, Ms. Williams, we cannot arrest under reasonable suspicion. But the police agency can do that. So you see, the police is a part of us, the public. So let's stop this alienation which has been brought in because of the trust deficit between the society and the police that is serving it. So, or the police...
You're a good point there, Honor Ihomo, you're raising, but I'm afraid that's where so many questions to raise. But thank you so much for being on Newsday. Oh, all right. We'll still have you. We'll come back and discuss some more. But we'll have our correspondent in Abuja. We're learning that the Arise camera has been released due to pressure on the part of the military. Ferdinand, bring us up to speed.
Come on now. All right, guys. It's been a very hectic day. Now, after the cameras were confiscated, everybody galvanized around the Arise News. Well, let's not forget that, just like we pointed out earlier, well, this thing is a direct attack on Arise News. Now, we're the only television station in the protest, and we're taking it last month. So now, from what we saw and then from what we could make out of it, because one of the security guys tried to explain to us, and then some of them went for Jonah, the cameraman who was with the camera. Another person went for Joshua, who was also with the TVU, and it was a deliberate act to stop us from recording. And then they appealed to the crowd that the crowd should leave the National Assembly complex and then go back to the Unity Fountain. Now, the Unity Fountain is a place where the government has said, well, groups can indeed protest. But don't forget that it has been all about taking this protest to the government. That's the reason why the people have decided and have refused to stay at the Unity Fountain. And then they spoke to Aisha Yusufu, who was able to convince the crowd to indeed go back, to the Unity Fountain. And on the way to the Unity Fountain, was some of the security personnel came to us and explained to us that they just wanted us to stop recording. And then took us to a vehicle where they handed us back our camera. Now, there were actually two attempts at assault. The first one was that the camera guys were recording live. The second was we who was trying to of the crowd. They went for microphone. Fortunately, they had the microphone and the microphone was destroyed. This microphone was destroyed. And then we have been to the camera. And so we are trying hard to see if we can make any connection now so that we can go back live, which is the responsibility of Arise to ensure that we bring this footage of the protest to the people. Now, while all this was actually going on, the crowd also had galvanized around us and then have been doing different types of recordings. So right now on social media, there are some recordings circulating and then tagging Arise official, telling us that yes, they are with us in the struggle, and then they will ensure that for those clips that we missed out on during the protest, while the cameras were confiscated, they will ensure Arise News get back those footages.
Beautiful.
And so we're going back to the Unity Fountain, where the group is conveying to see if they can continue the protest.
Well, Ferdinand, thanks a lot for bringing us up to speed with what's going on. Please keep in touch with us, especially when you're back at the protest, once the camera is hopefully back up, so that we can get as much footage as possible and showcase exactly what is going on. We'll come back to you in a moment. Thanks a lot, Ferdinand, and please stay safe. Let's bring it back here into the studio, Mr. Efeni. We just heard from Ferdinand. Unfortunately, the line was a bit bad and it was cracking. But from what I managed to pick up on, our camera's been returned and we're going to get back our footage as well that we have lost. What do you make of this?
Yes, the intention was obvious, to stop Arise News from broadcasting live the activities of the protesters as it happened there. And the soldiers also had the intention of stopping the recording of that brutalization, not only of Arise crew, but using branches of trees to flog and hit the protesters. But I think they have also failed, thanks to the pressure from the protesters, their insistence, and I'm sure the soldiers must have also received pressure from elsewhere, because we did not stop talking live, despite the fact that they tried to disable our camera. We're still broadcasting. Ferdinand, our man on the ground, was still relaying reports, and I'm sure that will have also gotten to certain persons. Hence, they have released our camera. We hope the second camera that was seized also a couple of days ago will be released. And if those who have been injured, well, let's not put all our cards on the table. We know what to do about those who have been injured.
Well, excuse me. It's interesting that even when the camera went off air, like Ferdinand was saying a while ago there, that people who, it shows you how involved they are with all this protest, they kept on recording. And like he told us, they will give the pictures, the videos of what they got during the time interregnum between when we couldn't get pictures any longer on air, while Ferdinand and his cameraman is trying to get us back on. It's quite interesting that they have pictures and videos that will probably get on and continue with the great work. I must add, great work that we're doing, covering this event all over the Federation.
Yes, we have a responsibility to broadcast the news, and that is the news of the day in Nigeria.
That's the news.
You cannot change the news. We don't make the news.
Yeah.
We report the news.
Whether we receive threats or not, and we just have to keep going.
It's not threat that will stop us from reporting the news.
Yeah.
That's what we are established to do. That's what we have signed up to do, and we'll continue doing it to the benefit of the nation.
It's just interesting that with every single protest that's held in Abuja over the past few days, when you look at the resistance that it's met with security agencies, it makes you wonder, does this tiny bit of democratic action really get you that riled up? Are you really unable to cope with citizens showing just a tiny bit of that democratic action? And it's really worrying to see. What reason do you have to go against peaceful protesters? What is within you that's so unnerving that makes you go after peaceful protesters? And I think what we saw today was good, that it was showcased to the world world to see, because everyone could see from that there was not a single protester approaching the National Assembly without peace.
Well, leaders must know that when you talk of your democratic credentials, it includes allowing peaceful protests, because it is the right of the people to protest any policy of government, action of government that they are not happy with.
It's called the voice of the masses.
Yes, and truly and clearly, the Nigerian youths who are in the forefront of this protest have been brutalized over time. Not yesterday, not last year. It started quite some time ago. There have been outcry. Persons have been killed. Nobody brought to book. Now it got to this point that the youths have now come out to protest openly. Yeah. The least we expect government and government officials to do is to come out. Look at what Babatunde, I keep on referring to the governor, Sanwo-Olu. Yes, he had to come to the Lekki toll point. Even in the face of shouting, some were even concerned about his security. But because he knows that you have to talk to the people who are aggrieved, he went on. Today, again, he addressed the people in Alausa.
Because they're not aggrieved for no reason. You know, they're not just coming out like they have nothing to do.
I was also surprised that not even one National Assembly member, just to drive to that point to de-escalate the situation.
Thank you.
That in itself does not show that they are representing their people well.
Thank you.
Which is one of the questions I put to Ferdinand. You'd have expected that the information would have got to them, and then somebody would have just walked up to this point and made a statement or two. That won't be asking too much, but apparently it must have got to them. They didn't think it as important to probably get to the place where the
I'm sure somebody is monitoring Arise TV. Arise News, yes, to get to them.
Now, it's also from what Ferdinand said.
They were just a few meters away from the National Assembly.
And they told them to go back to
the Unity Square.
Unity Square, where protests are allowed. So now, as we speak, until we get back on air, all the protesters are back at the Unity Square.
They are on their way back
to the Unity Square to continue with the protest over there. Just to remind you that what you're watching are not current pictures, but these are earlier pictures from the recording of our cameraman earlier, where a particular soldier was so animated he had to rush at him and then hit down the camera and then brutalized the cameraman. And of course, some of the protesters there, with what Ferdinand said, they had to go even get sticks from the trees around that place to come and flog protesters.
This kind of brutalization is just not something that we should ever be speaking of, not just even in a democracy in 2020.
We are not in a military regime.
Thank you. We're not in a military regime. We're meant to be 20 years into democracy.
The soldiers who know their place.
It's really heartbreaking to see, because think about it, especially from the perspective of a young Nigerian. What is the Nigeria you've seen so far? And then you still cannot even see a Nigeria ahead of you? Come on, it's the most devastating and crushing thing. And when I was out there yesterday speaking to so many young people, all I felt from them was pure heartbreak, not even anger, just more upset, more disappointment, more like, we're not even doing this for us at this point. We're doing this for the next generation, because at the end of the day, what's left for us? And that feeling of hopelessness, seeing so many young people having given up, it's heartbreaking. It honestly is.
That is where the government of the day has a lot of work to do.
Well,
because hopelessness should not be a choice.
Yeah.
When you have a government.
Exactly. Thank you.
It's the duty of government not only to perform, but to give people hope.
Hope.
If you don't have hope, what is the government doing?
Well,
and I think
it's hope that keeps us all alive.
Yeah. So the government and officials of government must step forward to do the needful.
Yeah, like Ona said there at this point, that he described him as an orator.
Frank
Mba, the police spokesperson.
Frank Mba cannot step forward unless he's ordered to do so.
Oh, well.
If he's ordered to do so, I'm sure he knows what to say. But if his bosses have not asked him to go and speak, he cannot speak.
Yeah.
This,
his boss says, well, he said that. Well, that I guess that is also what it means. Of
so
course.
his bosses should also think of getting him to speak if he can communicate better to the Nigerian public.
The fact that we even have to speak about it, the fact that we even have problems with communication with our police force, with other arms of government, it's unfair on the Nigerian citizen. That's what it is. If you are just tuning in to Arise News now, however, what you are seeing on the screen is footage from earlier on, just before the second Arise camera in about 48 hours was destroyed. And now we do have Ferdinand Doroha, our correspondent, back with us. I believe he's now moved over to Unity Square with the rest of the protesters. Ferdinand, glad to have you back and to see that you're doing well. Bring us up to speed.
Our camera is up.
Yeah.
Guys, well, you can see for yourself live pictures. Well, let me also confirm that we are using the same cameras. And just like I told you guys a couple of minutes ago, well, the security guys called us back and then told us that they just wanted to distract the crowd and that they were going to give us back our cameras to leave. But in the process of the assault, well, these have been damaged. Now, this is supposed to be the microphone or the transmitter between the camera and this. So we're trying to record with natural sound now. And then also, well, for the TVU, which is like a satellite, well, it has also, the connection point has also been destroyed while they tried to get that, and then the scramble went on. But then we are very, very certain that we will fix that. And so, yes, we have been able to retrieve the camera, but just behind me are the protesters. They are on their way to the Unity Fountain. It is just about 400 meters from here. But then it's a very slow walk, and that's because for some of them who have been very resilient, well, they're trying to put up some kind of demonstrations. But then I must tell you that yes, the people who are coordinating this, and then they are making sure that they stick to the plan. And so, guys, well, Arise News back up. Well, lots of people have been tweeting. Well, we had the protesters behind us, and that's because we've associated with them. We've put out their police out there, put out their protest stations out there, and so, well, everybody demanded that the Arise News cameras be returned, and then they refused to go. They were very, very resilient until the military guys came to us and then told us that they were going to give us our cameras back, that we should just appeal to the crowd so that the crowd can leave. And as I can also confirm to you that on the microphone is Joshua and also Jonah. Now, the two of them were harassed earlier on, but Jonah is the person who have some boost by his side. To take care of him. But let's not also forget that the cameraman, is down in the person of Francis, who was assaulted 2 days ago, and he has had a couple of scans also. So it's not been a very easy one for Arise News, but we've been doing this to try and bring this to you and let you know exactly what is happening. So, very, very slow down to the Unity Fountain, where the protest is actually scheduled, to go finally.
All right, Ferdinand, if you will, just walk us through one more time how you were able to retrieve the camera. Who pleaded? Were you the ones who got to the soldiers, or they're of their own accord had to call you back to give you the camera? Walk us through how you got back the camera again.
Okay, well, we told you that, one of the security persons came to us and told us that they collected our cameras. Just like, confirming what I earlier said, that it was a direct attack on Arise News because we were recording live. We are the only station who is recording this live. And so all they wanted to do was stop the cameras from getting live footage, stop Arise News from getting live footage, and also recording some of the activities of the military men, which, from what we saw earlier, were all assaults on, the protesters. And then we asked the protesters to move back to the Unity Fountain, where rallies, traditionally, take place in the Federal Capital Territory, and they refused. And it was some sort of a negotiation. Aisha Yusufu was involved, but a couple of others also, some of the leaders of the protest were also involved, and also with the Arise News crew. And then they confirmed that yes, they definitely will give us back the cameras. Now, just behind me, you can see let's try and see if we
got of short
watching now is Ferdinand, correspondent, trying to get Aisha Yusufa, I guess, to speak on camera. Yeah, that's her. I think that's the interview. That's two of them speaking. Now let's get to hear what they say. Well, the reason, like you heard Ferdinand explain, is that he's the microphone which he should use, which will of course drown out the ambient sound that you're hearing. He can no longer use it because it's been destroyed. So apparently he's using his earpiece to connect with us, and that's why you can hear all the motorcycle passing, all the cars passing. That's the reason for the noise. It can drown out the ambient noise there.
Yeah.
Well, that brings it to the end of Newsday today. You have been watching Newsday with me, Leila Johnson-Salami.
And myself, Ndi Amogo. Still keep watching Arise News for the rest of our programming, of course, covering of the SARS protests across the nation. Thank you for watching.